Hey Smauglings, what is happening? This is going to be the review for The Last of Us Season 1. This is created by Craig Maizin and Neil Druckmann and starring Pedro, Pascal and Bella Ramsey. And the premise of the show is about a man and a young girl traversing the post-apocalyptic wasteland to seek a vaccine for a deadly virus that has occurred within the world. To give a bit of context for The Last of Us, I'm a massive fan of the games and I love the TV show as well, and I've been a fan for over 10 years of this series, and I think they are some of the best stories ever told in video games, and I was so happy when I heard that it was being adapted into a television adaptation. I thought that was a really great idea for this particular story, and I'm a massive fan of it, and I really love this series, and I'm eagerly anticipating season 2 of the show, and I'm going to be doing an episode by episode review of each episode of season 2, so stay tuned to that, Smauglings. So that's what's going to be happening there. But I wanted to do a review of the first season. I'm going to try to avoid recapping the events of the episodes. I want to review the show and provide some thoughts and some particular moments that really stood out to me within the episodes. So immediately within the show we get an explanation of the cordyceps fungus, and I think this is a really great idea because it gives the people that have not played the games context that we would find in journal entries within the game. So I think this is a really great idea to engage people within the world and let them understand what is about to happen within the TV show. So I did like that quite a lot, and it's a beautifully shot show, really stunning to look at, and it's a very expensive show. And Neil Druckmann, the creator of the game, did direct a few episodes, which is an interesting bit of trivia. I thought that was really interesting, and the show is very dynamic in that way as well, because some of the dramatic moments between different characters will be shot steadily, and the camera will be at one particular place and it look very beautiful. But then you get these dynamic moments where there are action scenes and there's a handheld camera, and it almost takes the appearance of a Bourne movie. It seems like that quite a lot in those particular moments, and the show is very faithful to the game. To a fault sometimes. I think it's very faithful in terms of the actual story that it's telling. It hits all the major beats of the game, and it's hard to subvert your expectations when you're familiar with the game, as I am. And it really does tell the story well. There's not many surprises for people that have played the game. There is one surprise which I did like quite a lot, and it doesn't really surprise you all that much, but it still tells a beautiful story, and I really enjoyed watching it for sure. I know that a lot of people have had an issue with the fact that the infected aren't heavily featured within the show, which is not an issue for me because they were always the least interesting part of the show. I was more interested in the plot, the story, the characters and the world rather than the actual infected monsters. Although I do acknowledge that they are effective monsters within the show and an effective presence in the game as well. But that is the case with that. And a change they've made to this show is that the outbreak happens in 2003 and not 2013. And that sort of plays on the post 9/11 paranoia in America due to the terrorist attacks, and I thought that was quite interesting, the way that the outbreak was portrayed. I thought it was really frightening and effective, and I really loved the way they displayed it within the show. I thought they did a really good job of doing that. And when we get to the world post-outbreak, we get a very bleak and barren world that is affected by a global outbreak. and it's very similar to a book that I really like, which is Cormac McCarthy's The Road, and I know that this story is a big influence to The Last of Us. I know that The Road is a very big influence to the story that The Last of Us is telling in the games as well. I think Neil Druckmann has talked about the fact that Cormac McCarthy has been a big influence on his storytelling here. And I really love the fact that in the games we're restricted to the perspective of Joel and Ellie, because these are the playable characters within the game. But in the show, we are able to have the viewpoint of multiple different characters, because you have the benefit of the format of TV. We're not locked to one particular character that we're playing, because in a game, if we were to shift to a different character, we'd have to change the playstyle completely, and it would present all sorts of technical difficulties, and it would disrupt the flow and the pacing of the game too much. But it's not really the case with the TV show, so I like that they used the format to their advantage. I think that was really clever of them to do. I really love the fact that the characters that we're following are not very verbal and loquacious characters, particularly in the beginning. Joel and Tess are people that have been destroyed and affected deeply by this outbreak, and it's made them a shell of who they previously were, and as such they are not very forthcoming with their feelings, and we see that quite a lot. And it's not until a character like Ellie comes along where we see someone that is full of life and ready to express their feelings. Joel is obviously very reserved and doesn't speak a whole lot after the outbreak, and it's really interesting to see that, and I think they really portrayed well by Pedro Pascal, who's very well cast as Joel. And I gotta say, I really like Bella Ramsey as well. I think she's really good as Ellie. It's a slightly different version of Ellie from the games, but I think she is very good here. I do think she is very good. And I think that too many video game adaptations feel like a cosplay party, as they try to authentically depict the game down to the costuming and the production design. But they forget to make the show actually look good, the film or show, because we see a show which is not a video game adaptation, but it's an adaptation of an anime. I think of Cowboy Bebop, the live action show, and how absolutely shit everything looked, because they were trying to make the costumes look authentic, but they forgot to make a show that actually looked appealing, because it just looked so cheap and it just looked like an SNL sketch. And it's so colourful, and that's the problem, where they don't try to treat the source material seriously, and that's what Last of Us does. You'd have no idea this was based on a video game if you did not know that knowledge, because it just feels like it was based on a classic novel, a really classic dystopian novel that is really well respected, because it's got that prestige behind it, which I think is really cool. And it's also got a lot of the music from the game. It's got the iconic theme from the game that we hear quite a lot, and the same composer, Gustavo, is composing the theme for the show as well, which is really great. And the crux of the show is that Joel and Ellie are on this journey together, and they're working together, and they're getting to know each other very well also. And it's interesting that Joel lived a life before the outbreak, and Ellie has lived only after the outbreak, as she was born after the outbreak. And there's a great contrast and friction to their characters and their personalities, and that's the heart of any great story, is the friction and the contrast and the conflict. And it's about breaking down those barriers, and those two particular characters getting to know each other and really form that bond with each other. And I want to speak a little bit about the creatures, because I do think they are an effective presence within the show and the games, and they portray them very faithfully from how they are within the games. I think they've done very well here, and I will say that the bloater enemy looks phenomenal. I think that is a really great depiction of the enemy from the game, and I know that was a lot of work to get that working properly, so I commend them for really depicting that so well. And in the show, the creatures of the infected, they operate as a hive mind, which they don't in the game. They operate independently, and in the show they operate as one particular organism, which I think is so cool. I think it's really great the way they've done it, and they run so fast as well, like goddamn World War Z or 28 Days Later zombies. They're really full of rage and they go so quickly, and it's really interesting to see that depicted in this particular show. And we see that Joel is detached and practical, and Ellie's inquisitive and boisterous. That's another contrast to their personalities, which I did like quite a lot. I want to speak about episode 3, which stands out from the rest of the episodes because it focuses on these characters, Bill and Frank, which are characters that within the game. Bill is a character that is featured within the game, and Frank is mentioned in the game. And I gotta be honest, I do relate a little bit to Bill in episode 3, where he's this survivalist, which is someone that wants to have all the equipment ready for an outbreak, and his town is evacuated and he is in the town on his own, and he's completely content with solitude, and I do relate to that in quite a big way. It's sort of contentment with solitude, not to the extent that he is, but I thought that was quite well done, I think, in that. And this is an amazing episode. It's probably my favourite episode of the show, the Bill and Frank episode. I think it's so phenomenally done, and it's big improvement on the game in terms of the story, because we don't get that much of this story. Within the game, we basically get that Bill had a relationship with this man named Frank, and they had a big falling out, and they didn't get along with each other after their relationship. So I did really like that, and it's a really beautifully done episode, and I did cry within this episode because it was so beautifully done, and I really did like the way it was done there. So that is the best episode, I think, of the series, is the Bill and Frank episode. I really did think that was phenomenally done, and it's a large part to Nick Offerman's performance, who was so great within that particular episode. And we get additional characters within the show as well. We get Kathleen, who's a resistance leader within the show, and it's interesting because it depicts that the people can be just as ugly as the infected monsters, and I really did like that they showed that within the show. We get a variety of different personalities to show you that there are people that are just as ugly as the infected in terms of being a person, and I really did like that they showed that. And we also get Jackson County as well. We get a depiction of Jackson County, which is the commune within the game that is run by Joel's brother's wife, Maria. So we get to see Tommy and Maria within the commune, and then we get the Jackson County area within the show, which I did really like. I thought that was really well done. It provides respite for the characters there, and especially provides a rest for Ellie, but Joel finds it difficult to rest because he's so used to being on the run, and it makes him feel like he's not got much purpose there. And this is where we get Joel's inability as a man to protect what truly matters to him the most, which I think was really interesting. I did like that they showed that quite a lot. And as I said, the main story beats are hit from the game, so it's very faithful in that way, which I think is very good. But I would have liked to have seen a bit more experimentation within the show, I think. I do love that we get Troy Baker within the show, as he plays a character within the show called James, who's the right-hand man to the cannibal leader David, which I did really like, because obviously he plays Joel within the game, so it's cool to see him appear here. And we also get a portrayal of Ashley Johnson, who plays a very important character within the show. Ashley Johnson, who plays Ellie within the game. She plays Anna, Ellie's mother, within the game, which I thought was really awesome. I thought that was a really great casting choice, quite honestly. And her particular moment is really great because it's a great expansion on the lore of the game, as it explains why Ellie was immune to the cordyceps, as her infected mother cut the umbilical cord as soon as she was bitten by an infected, and it renders her immune to the virus. And it's a great little explanation of the reason as to why she is immune. It's not really explained in the game, and it's left for interpretation, so I did like that it was explained quite a lot here, and I did really like that. And I think that the final episode, the episode where Joel makes that fateful choice to return Ellie to himself and not have her be a possible experiment for the cure for humanity, I think that was really well done. I think it's a little bit more compact than I would have liked, perhaps. I think they could have taken a bit more time to maybe do that. I think it may have been a story that could have been done over 2 episodes rather than 1. But I did think it was really well done. And I do have to say that this is more than likely one of the greatest video game adaptations I've ever seen. It might be the greatest video game adaptation I've ever seen. I do love Silent Hill the movie, but I don't think it's as good as this. I really do love the Silent Hill movie, the first one, not the other ones. But I really think that this is probably the greatest video game adaptation. I cannot wait to see Season 2, like I said, really excited to see that. And they did a phenomenal job here, and I think that's to do with the fact that they had all the team involved. They had Naughty Dog, they had Neil Druckmann involved, they had the original creators of the game involved in the show, which I think is a really smart choice. So I really did love the fact that they did that, and I really love The Last of Us Season 1. I think it's phenomenal. I can't wait to see Season 2. So I'm going to give The Last of Us Season 1 9.5 out of 10. Absolutely phenomenal viewing. You definitely should see it if you're not already, and I cannot recommend it enough. I think it's phenomenal. So that is my review for The Last of Us Season 1, guys. What did you think of the show? Are you excited for Season 2? Have you played the games? Which one is your favourite? Let me know in the comments below. And I really appreciate your smugglings. You guys take care, and I will see you soon.